Helen here with Eyes on the Game, and we are here at the Olympia Expo, and look who I found at the Nutribolics booth, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion and undefeated Bellator heavyweight, Bobby Lashley. What's it like being here at the Olympia Expo?
Oh, it's always a great time coming to the Expo. You know, it's always a madhouse. You always meet a whole bunch of great people, and I'm having an opportunity to connect with some of the people that I've trained with before. So being down in Vegas is always a good place to go and train. So hopefully I get some training in as well as working here for Nutribolics.
And what's it like being a part of the Nutribolics team?
Oh man, it's a great team. You know, a lot of these different companies, they have just people that come in and work for them from time to time. But I've been with Nutribolics for a year and a half now, and all of us are kind of friends, so we always have a good time. We always joke around. We always have fun at the booth, so it's always a good time for us.
Yeah, so normally people come to Vegas, they have fun, they let loose, but you have a few big fights coming up. First, you have to defend your TNA World Heavyweight title early October, and then you have a Bellator fight coming up, I believe, October 21st?
Yes. Yeah, so this time in Vegas has been basically work here all day, and then afterwards go and train some boxing coach and go and link up with some of the guys. Hopefully I get a chance to get it with Rory Nelson. He's down here. Todd Duffy, me and him, we're going to get a little workout in. And then a couple of other guys from Extreme Core. So for me, it's just in bed, training, and then working.
Yeah, well, nothing wrong with that. Bellator's been making headlines lately. You guys just signed Chael Sonnen. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I like Chael. He has that little wrestling vibe in him, and he knows how to promote fights. That's one thing that some of the fighters don't understand, is that if you're nobody, you're not going to get paid much. Chael Sonnen has broken the barriers. He speaks well, and he's a great fighter also. And right now he's looking for those big money fights, so I don't know how heavy he can get, but if he's looking for big money fights, that's the same thing I am.
So you would like to fight him?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not calling him out or anything like that. I just know that he knows what's up. He knows what. The first person I think he spoke about was Tito, which if he fights Tito, I'm watching, and I think everybody else is watching. And if I'm not, I'm gonna be begging to be on that card, because that's gonna do some big numbers. So Chael gets it. And I hope that from Chael, I think some of these other people, Roy McDonald came over, and I think some of these fighters understand that Bellator is about the fighters, that they say, and they're about the show. So people are going to tune in to watch some of these big names coming over. And a lot of people that aren't getting treated well in other organizations, they're going to look at it and say, well, if Chael did it, Roy did it, Hendo did, all these other guys are switching over, maybe there's something with Bellator. And we're having great shows. Last night, Chet fought Johnson. I think that was a great fight. Joy Warren, the baddest man on the planet. I think we have a lot of good things going on in Bellator.
And speaking of big names that you just mentioned, though, Bobby, CM Punk recently made his MMA and UFC debut. Did you watch his fight?
I did watch his fight.
What'd you think?
You know, two things. Okay, first of all, props to Punks for getting out there. You know, a lot of people didn't think that he was actually going to do it because the time kept going and time kept going, so we didn't know if he was going to fight. So props to him for doing it. Two, it's hard. What these guys that criticized him have to realize is most of the best fighters out there did undercard fights, did amateur fights for years. He went to the major promotion in a major event on TV, on pay-per-view with a lot, and we don't know anything about this Mickey Gall. Like they said before, Mickey Gall might come out to be like a really badass and be like a top 10 player, and then everybody's gonna look back and say, whoa, then maybe Punk's not that bad. He trained with a good camp, and I know a lot of the guys that he trained with, from Anthony Pettis to Tyrone Woodley, and all those guys said that he's very respectful, which he is, and he trained his ass off for it. So I can give him the props for doing that. I don't know if that was the best decision to jump into the UFC, but when somebody throws money at you like that, then you got to really kind of consider it. And everybody else that gives them a hard time, you got to ask them, if you got paid $500,000 to fight someone, would you? I think everybody would say yes, absolutely, without a doubt, no matter who it is.
So you've been successful in pro wrestling and MMA right now. What advice would you give CM Punk, who may have not had a successful, debut fight, but wants to continue to pursue his dream?
I think, you know what, it's once you start training in mixed martial arts, and everyone would say the same thing, it becomes addictive. So the best thing that you can do is just turn off your social media, at least the naysayers. You don't want to listen to those guys. And then I would say go back into it. I wouldn't say necessarily jump into the UFC, because if he does have to take another fight in the UFC, man, he has to go with one of the guys that's on the roster. And if Mickey Gall was tough, some of those other guys are going to be way tougher. I say do what I did. You know, I got put in a strike force early on in my career, and then I suffered a loss, which, I mean, there's a lot behind that. I'm not giving all the excuses, but it was one of those things. I had mono. I was killing the guy the entire time, and then my body failed on me, okay? But after that, I took some time off, and I did a lot of undercard fights. I fought for Titan. I fought for MFC. I fought for all these other promotions. And then when I came back, I felt comfortable. And that's the biggest thing about fighting, I think that fighters will know, is when you get out there and you feel comfortable, you're dangerous. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to find a way to feel comfortable out there. At least he's been there before, so he's seen what it's like. So maybe next time when he goes back into it, he's going to feel more comfortable. But take a couple fights off in some of these smaller promotions. They'll love to have him. He already made his money, so go over there in one of these other fight promotions, take a smaller paycheck, and then go out there and get some fights under your belt. And then when you feel comfortable, then jump back in. I'm sure Jane will let him back in because he did the ratings. And then on top of it, here's another thing that we're going to talk about with it. Okay, let's be honest. Stipe Miocic, he's an amazing fighter, but not too many people know him. He doesn't have a huge fan base. So of course they're going to put Punk on his card because they want people to see him based on coming to watch Punk. And I think Stipe made so many more fans because, one, he got put on a card where a lot of people were watching because Punk, and then two, he fought somebody that had a big name with Overeem. So I think Punk did justice to MMA across the board and the UFC across the board. So now let's take a step back, let's get those fights in and then come back. He needs to get a win. He has to.
You still talk to him, or?
Well, I mean, I knew Punk when I was in there, but, you know, I keep a good separation between myself and my business. So I'm not one of those guys that are big buddies with everybody. You know, I'm very respectful to everybody in the wrestling business, and I'm great friends with them there. But when I go home, my time is consumed by my kids. I got kids. I got little ones, so I'm always with them. So, yeah, Punk's a good friend of mine. I'll hit him up on social media and different things like that, but we're not like texting buddies where we go back and forth. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him because Punk broke a lot of barriers so many different times. Like, if you look at him and compare him to like Hulk Hogan and Rock and all those guys, you wouldn't think they were in the same level. But Punk put himself as the best, one of the best in the sport and the best the sport's ever had. So he broke barriers in wrestling, and then he went to MMA and he did the same thing. So what I think he should do is just get back in there, work his ass off, and then I think he can beat, if he does it right, go out there and get a couple undercard fights, and then come out there and challenge somebody that's pretty good, and find the matchup that works for him, okay, and then get that win.